Yo, what's up, everybody? Jumping here. And today I want to talk about Warhammer Chaosbane. This is a game I've been playing lately, and I've been having a lot of fun with it. There's a lot of really cool things in this game, and I want to talk about those today and kind of show you why I actually really like it. Now, if you're wondering what this game is, it is an action RPG in the style of Diablo. So if you like those types of games, I would probably recommend this game to you. The only real problem I have with giving a recommendation is that this is a full price game. And I feel like if this game was a little bit cheaper, maybe if it went on sale, I would definitely recommend it. But if it's at full price, I feel like I really have a hard time just saying you should go out and spend like $60 on a game like this. It kind of has a little bit of an indie game feel to it, and I don't know if it's worth the full price. But I will tell you that if you do like Diablo style games, I definitely would say that you will probably enjoy Warhammer Chaosbane. Now, before I actually talk about what I really like about this game and what kind of separates it from Diablo, because of course that's a good argument to make against a game like this. Why do I want to play a Diablo clone when I can actually go ahead and just play Diablo? And that's a good argument to make, but this game does do enough things different that it is a very fun experience, especially if you have a group of friends that you can play it with, or if you meet people that you can play with, and then you can actually experiment with a lot of cool stuff that you can do as a group. Now, there are a lot of minor problems with this game. I don't really want to talk about a lot of the things that I have experienced because a lot of it would seem a little bit nitpicky. It's a lot of really minor things that a patch can easily fix, but it is quite annoying when they do happen. I do have to be honest about that. It is not perfect by any stretch of the imagination. There is going to be a big patch coming out for this game this week. So I'm actually pretty excited about that. They're going to be adding a lot of new content. They're going to be fixing a lot of the bugs. I guess we'll have to see exactly what they do. But I really do hope that they will actually fix a lot of the minor problems with the game. And on top of that, add some new content. They're adding in a new rarity, new stages. Eventually they're going to add in a new hero. And that's really cool, and I'm actually excited for that. Now, this game isn't really all that popular from what I can tell. I'm not exactly sure, but it seems like a lot of people don't really know about it. That's one of the reasons I wanted to make the video, to kind of talk about it and show you. I think one of the problems with the game, of course, is its price. I think that most people look at this and they say, that's a full price game. I don't really know if I want to spend that money, especially since it is a Diablo clone. And it looks like Diablo, where they might say, well, I like that type of game, but I own Diablo 3 Reaper of Souls. I'll just go and play that if I'm in the mood to play Diablo. And that is, once again, a very fair argument to make. Now, the first thing I actually want to talk about when it comes to things I like about this game is actually the loot system. I'm sure a lot of people might be wondering about that. How is the loot system? Is it bad? Is it good? I can tell you right now that this is a very fair loot system. It does rain drops. Right now, the highest rarity that you can get is a red rarity. It's called Heroic. And with this update, they're going to be adding in a green rarity, which I don't know the name of it, but that's going to be an even higher rarity, so that's really cool. But it does rain loot, especially on the higher difficulties. Right now, you have the Chaos modes, which are your harder difficulties. That goes 1 through 5. And with those difficulties, if you're playing on like Chaos 5, you're going to get a ton of drops. It's actually really, really nice. There's also ways to actually boost your drop rate, and those actually do help a lot. You will definitely feel that if you are boosting your drop rate. But on top of that, it's actually just a really fair system, because if you are playing on a lower difficulty, let's say you get to the end game and you are playing on the lower difficulty to try to get some loot, you can actually farm the lower difficulties to get the red loot. You don't have to play on the Chaos modes to get that loot. I'm not sure about the green drops. I kind of hope that those are locked behind the harder difficulties, because then that would make sense. You can actually play a lower difficulty like normal or hard mode and actually grind some of the red loot, and once you have that, you can handle the higher chaos levels, and then you can go and get the green loot. So I definitely think that's a cool system if that's what they're going for, and I'm not exactly sure was that their intention. I found that quite strange that you could get the highest rarity stuff on the lower difficulties. But now I appreciate it a lot more, because it's a lot easier to help people, especially once they've just beaten the game or they have reached level 45. Level 50 is the max, but at level 45 you can start to get the red loot. And you can easily help people actually grind and get some loot if they want to go ahead and try to play on a chaos level. So now I actually want to go ahead and give you guys some examples of some of the things you can do with the builds, because that is my favorite part about this game, is coming up with builds, and they are insane. Some of the build synergy that you can get is unbelievable, and you can actually get some amazing class synergy. If you combine the classes together, they can just pretty much dominate. If you can come up with certain ways to set them up, you can make the entire team invincible with the mage. You can actually get insane damage on the Wood Elf if you have multiple Wood Elves. The tank can pretty much buff everybody and definitely make everybody a lot stronger if you have a tank. And the Dwarf can do insane damage, especially if you pair him with a tank that can actually help him with some of his weaknesses. So one of the examples that I'm going to give right now is some build synergy that you can come up with. And this is something that I pretty much thought of, and it is super effective. It works like a charm. But I am using a weapon on my Dwarf right now that will make it so that stunned enemies will take 200% more critical damage. And it's really easy to stun enemies with the Dwarf, but the tank can also stun enemies for the Dwarf. So if you're playing with a tank and he knows what he's doing, he can actually help you stun enemies. And then anytime they're stunned, they will just take massive damage from this. And then the other weapon I'm actually using is going to buff my critical damage by 100% in combat. I'll lose some health, but that's really not a big deal for the Dwarf. And I thought at first, okay, 100% more critical damage, that sounds nice. That's not how it works. This will effectively double your critical damage. Now right now on my Dwarf I have 284.7, and in combat that is doubled to over 500%, which makes the Dwarf hit like a truck. It is kind of crazy. Now for the skills I'm actually using, he does have a skill that can easily stun, and it has an AoE to it, which is nice. He also has a God skill that whenever you throw this out, this can stun enemies for you, which is also really nice. But he also has this passive skill that will allow him to actually inflict bleeding on any stunned enemy. And then on top of that, you can combine this, which will make bleeding do more damage, and then any attack while an enemy is bleeding has the potential to stun them. This is crazy, man. You can debuff them, and then you can absolutely dominate them if they're stunned. So that is just an example of some crazy synergy that you can actually get. And another thing I guess I should talk about is actually the God skill tree. There's a lot of God passives you can get, and also God skills. There's at least a couple of them right now. They will be adding more stuff to this later on with this update, so that's really cool. But an example of a really awesome God skill is actually this one right here, Ancestral's Gift. What this will do is this will make the Dwarf invincible for 4 seconds and make it so that he will not consume any energy with his attacks. This will also add fire damage to all his attacks, and once he's buffed up and ready to go, this will effectively double the damage that you'll do with certain attacks. And that is kind of crazy. You will absolutely melt bosses. I will show some examples of me and my friends melting the boss on Chaos 5, which is the highest difficulty right now, and it is nuts because the Dwarf has amazing synergy with the tank. And then the other one here is actually the one I showed earlier, which will stun enemies if you use this on them, and that just really helps for this build. Now I want to go ahead and show a couple of the cool things that you can do if you combine the classes together. My first example is going to be using double mage. If you actually have 2 mages, you can make your team completely invincible, which is kind of crazy. You can also get away with this by other ways. Having a tank and a mage can also make the team pretty much invincible, which is really nice. And the tank can definitely help out with the mage because the setup that I have for my mage right now is a fire attack setup where enemies will take more burning damage, and also I can buff my own damage by setting enemies on fire. Now what's really cool about this is that the tank can actually set enemies on fire for the mage, and this will buff the mage, so there is nice class synergy between the tank and the mage. But what I want to talk about is using double mage, because making the entire team invincible is kind of crazy, because in this game everything stacks, and I definitely thought that they would have some restrictions on it, where there might be a cap. There really isn't though, and the fact that you can easily make the entire team invincible is kind of crazy. But it's all about coming up with this with your build and actually combining these things together, especially if you're playing with people and you're talking to them and you're telling them about this stuff. And it's really easy for them to grind for the gear. It's not like really a chore. It's really hard to get the setup. All they have to do is grind, and once they get the setup, they can also do the setup with you. Now I'll go ahead and show you guys on how to actually make your entire team invincible using the mage. Remember, you do want to have 2 mages for this, or at least you do want to have a tank to actually accomplish this. But all you actually have to do it is you have to first have a couple passives. The first passive is this one, which will give everyone a debuff, which is kind of a bummer for damage, but it's really not a big deal overall. But the main thing that this is going to do is actually give you a minus 20% damage taken, and that applies to all players. If you have 2 mages, that will double because it will stack to 40%. And then the other passive that you also need is this one right here, which will make it so that if you are consuming energy as a mage, which is pretty much all the time when you're in combat, this will heal the players, and this will also give you a minus 10 damage taken. So if you combine that by 2, because it also stacks, that is minus 20%. And then the final thing that we are using is the staff. And what this will do is that anytime the mage is standing still, and the radius of this is actually huge, it's like the entire screen. You might not think it at first, but it actually is the entire screen. So overall, if you are using 2 mages with this exact setup, you are giving your entire team a 100% damage buff, a minus 40% damage taken buff, and a 20% critical hit chance buff. Now when it comes to the damage taken, if you actually combine everything together and you have the 2 mages, that is giving you a minus 100% damage taken buff, which will make the entire team invincible. So I'm showing you right now on the screen on how this works, and you're going to see my defense go up and up and up until eventually it becomes infinite. Now the next thing I want to actually show off is actually the Wood Elf, because with the Wood Elf, if you combine nothing but Wood Elves and they're using this setup, the amount of damage that the Wood Elf can get is insane. But that all comes from this one dagger that you can get. And what this does is that it will make it so that a percentage of the health regeneration is actually added to your damage. So right now it's giving me 325% damage buff because I actually have a lot of health regeneration. Now the way to get the health regeneration is to use some passives. The first one comes from a normal passive, and this is going to give you critical hit chance and also health regeneration when no enemy is nearby. This is very generous on how close the enemies have to be, so it is actually a really good perk to have. The next one is actually a God passive, which will just give yourself a lot of health regeneration. But if you are playing with other Wood Elves, you can actually use the second level of this, which will give everyone health regeneration. So you can times this by 4, and that is absolutely insane. The more Wood Elves you have, the better. And the final thing that you can use to give yourself a lot of health regeneration is a God skill. Whenever you throw it down on the ground, it has a huge radius to it. It will damage the enemies, but it will also give everyone in that radius of it health regeneration. If you stack this together with multiple Wood Elves, the amount of attack you can get off of this is insane. And the Wood Elf has amazing cooldown for its ability, so you can pretty much spam this non-stop. Now the final example I'm going to show you guys is actually going to be the tank. Now the gameplay that you're going to see with me playing the tank and my friend playing the dwarf will be on Chaos 5. We're going to be doing a couple boss rushes, and that is going to be absolutely ridiculous because you're going to see us melt the boss. But that is because of the fact that the tank can buff and debuff like crazy. And also the tank can help stun the boss, which will effectively up the dwarf's damage. Almost all the damage that is done in the clip is going to be coming from the dwarf. But that is how insane the tank can actually buff the dwarf and make him just hit way harder. Now when it comes to the tank, the main thing that the tank can get is a giant banner. Now this comes from a set bonus, but in my personal opinion, this is the best set bonus that you can get with the tank. But what this will do is this will buff everyone's damage in the banner by 50%. It will also give them counter attack damage, which is kind of like whatever. It gives them a minus 20% cooldown, which helps everybody. It gives them a minus 20% energy cost, which helps everybody. And it also gives them a minus 30% damage taken, which can help everybody. Now, if you combine this with the mage that I showed earlier, this can effectively help make everyone invincible. And you can also easily, by just having the tank and the mage, make the tank invincible, no problem. And on top of that, the tank also gets an insane debuff. At first I thought this was just for the tank, but after doing some testing, I can tell you right now, this is for everyone in your group. What this weapon does is that anytime you taunt enemies, which is a very crucial and major thing that the tank can do, it will actually debuff all the enemies to make them take 200% more damage. If you have multiple tanks using this, it is insane. And in that gameplay that you are watching, we are using 2 tanks with this sword, and we are effectively debuffing the boss by 400%, while I'm also stunning the boss for my dwarf friend. And on top of that, we are buffing the dwarf with our banners to make it so that he has incredible defense and incredible offense. So there is a lot of crazy synergy in this game, and there's so much more that I haven't really talked about. This is just a couple examples of things that you can come up with to do. Every single thing that I showed here, me and my friend Corky primarily just kind of thought of and figured out. So I wanted to make this video to kind of talk about this game and talk about why I like it. Now, there are problems with it, don't get me wrong, and I definitely would say that if you are thinking about picking this up, you might want to wait for a sale, because I don't know if I would really recommend paying full price for this game. But at the same time, I have really enjoyed it. If you like Diablo-style games, I definitely would probably recommend Warhammer Chaosbane, because it is a lot of fun. Of course, this game is a lot better with friends, so if you can convince some friends to play it with you, or if you're a friendly person, you can easily meet people. A lot of people in this game actually talk. That is something that is kind of interesting to me. Most games I play, a lot of people are quiet. They are on mute. They don't ever say anything. But in this game, I've met a lot of people, and most of them talk. And it's really easy to actually help them out and show them some cool stuff that they can do. And because the loot system is so fair, it's easy to actually help them grind for stuff. And then once they have their build set up, you can just have so much fun playing with them. So it is a game that I personally would probably recommend. And if any of you guys do have this game, if you want to play with me, you can always send me a message. If you want to get my PlayStation information, you can actually find that on my About section in my YouTube page. And you can go ahead and shoot me a friend request. Send me a message, though, and let me know that you're trying to play Warhammer Chaosbane with me. And if you are, I am more than happy to actually play with anybody. Anyway, guys, that's going to do it for this video. I really hope that you have enjoyed it and that you will like this video for me. That always helps me out, and I appreciate it. Also, be sure to subscribe for future videos, and of course, click the bell. You have to click the bell. Subscriptions mean nothing anymore. And I really do hope that everyone has a very nice day, and peace out.